Football made simple. Become great at your craft by finding ways to make it simple for those around you. This is the Coaching 101 podcast hosted by Find a Way Productions with your co-host, Daniel Chamberlain and Kenny Simpson.
Coach, do you want to communicate like a pro and experience the best sideline communication system on the market? Then let me introduce you to Procom headsets. Procom is the most clear, durable, and reliable system on the market. From our noise-canceling technology to our coach-to-player communications featuring our patented loudmouth, Procom defeats the competition. Thousands of coaches have made the switch because they have seen, heard, and felt the difference. Let me show you how Procom headsets will make your game day communications a seamless and efficient process. Go to procomwelchman.com and reach out to me. That's procomwelchman.com.
What's up, coaches? This is the Coaching 101 podcast. I'm Daniel Chamberlain, here with good friend Kenny Simpson. Coach, the wind is about to blow us away, and I know the wind comes sweeping down the plains because that's what the song says, but Lord have mercy. It's been crazy.
Yeah.
Is it like that over there in Batesville right now?
We're usually a day after you. Whatever's coming your way will come.
Okay,
we're in the hills.
Hey.
We're in hill country, so it gets blocked a little bit. You know, my wife.
Tie your house down, man. Look, it's blowing. Everything in my front yard is blowing around. I was afraid my camper was gonna blow over. It's nuts outside.
Yeah,
so.
no, ours is not too bad.
Good.
My wife's from Texas, and so it was that way there. You know, it was just miserable.
Yeah.
And you get in the flatlands, it's not bad. But we're clinic season up. If you guys are watching online, I was telling Coach before we got on here, my 11-year-old is giving me suggestions behind me on the board. So if we want to run all curls, he gave me a wheel route the other day, but he put a note that said, "Don't run this if they're going to blitz." And I was like, man, if I knew what they were going to do, then I could call the perfect play. That's kind of how that works. You know?
If they're going to blitz, they'll do it. That's awesome. Well, tonight we are joined by Owasso Rams' new head coach, first year in the big seat, Mr. Antonio Graham, a.k.a. AG.
Yes,
Coach,
sir.
Man, thank you so much for jumping on with us tonight. I feel like I've just been stringing the 6A coaches along here the last, couple months. We've been grabbing as many of y'all as we can because good football being played in the Tulsa Metroplex right now. So
I don't blame you, brother. Get them right. Get them while it's hot right now. So keep doing.
That's right.
It. Yeah.
Everybody's so busy, you know.
Yeah.
I think we got Coach Morsey coming on here in a couple weeks too. Like just trying to. You guys are there's so much knowledge in that building, you know. And I guess I don't know how many coaches on staff, 12, 15, whatever, and then.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of guys just sitting around waiting, kind of like you did, waiting on the big seat to open up or the next coordinator job, and not afraid to stay put and learn years and years of knowledge. So I'm just glad y'all will give up a little bit of time and come teach me some football every once in a while.
Oh shoot, I'm glad that you. Like I was telling Coach earlier, man. I think this is a lost cause, man. That people just don't sit around and talk ball anymore. I think I shared that with you, Coach, in the past. That. Man, like I think when I first got into coaching, it was one of them deals that I was doing stuff like Coach got on the back of his whiteboard right there. We drawing stuff up, man, and just trying to. It wasn't who had the pen, the lash, or anything. It was just keeping your mouth shut and be humbled or get humbled, you know, and just learn, you know. And it's just not enough of this going on today. But like Coach said, you guys doing a great job with you guys' stuff and. On you guys' end is going well, so this may be something that I gotta continue to be a part of, man.
Absolutely. Hey, we'll have you on anytime you want to come on, man. You just come on, be the third guy if you want to. Right? It really doesn't hurt our feelings.
Yes, sir.
So just so everybody else knows who you are, Coach, why don't you give us a little snippet about your coaching journey and just kind of where you came from and how you got where you are?
Perfect, man. Well, man, I played high school football at Tulsa Union under Coach Blankenship, and I'm originally from Alabama. I moved up here in my younger teens or whatever, and so just get up here to live with my dad. And you know, he was a football player his whole life and played semi-pro. He was actually when the Tulsa Talons started, he was the oldest guy that made the football team. I think he was 36 years old, and you know that was a young thing, so he was a part of that. But you know, he had his own private business, so he made more money doing that, but. He was just one of those guys who was just like an athletic freak, you know, 38 years old, still running, you know, fast and physical and stuff like that. So I guess it was kind of in my bloodline to play football or be something, be something. He was that guy. If you're going to be in the band, you're going to be the best freaking band player ever, whatever it may be. So anyway, once I graduated, I went to Pittsburgh State, played linebacker there for I was that fifth year senior, made sure I got my degree when I left out of there. Had a pretty decent career there. But when I got done, Coach, I had no idea. Well, I was kind of struggling, like, what's going to be next? Was there going to be that empty void? But I was that guy when I was growing up that coming through high school, I got basically taken in by different coaches and teachers. And, it kind of took, unfortunately, when I was in high school, my dad passed away. And so my high school coaches kind of took me in. And so it was no doubt that I was going to be a coach. Well, I got my first opportunity by Kurt Frederick. That was kind of like a dream of mine, dude, to go back to my own alma mater and just kind of coach there. And man, I tell you what, I started off, at the bottom, and I just learned. I thought I knew football until I was like, you have got to be kidding me, man. This goes on. And at that time, dude, we had the old DSV breakdown system. And it was just, I had to figure that out. And of course, you the bottom guy, and they gave me the hardest thing to do, self-scout. So you had to learn all the calls, and it had to be perfect. And DSV was just a pain in the butt at the time. And I was that guy that, this is 2009, 2010, that we were still driving on the turnpike to trade film. So that was freaking awesome, man. It sucked getting up at like 6 o'clock in the morning and, and looking for that person who you ain't never met in your life to trade hard drive and stuff. So I got a little bit of that as well for about 2 years. And then before you know it, Huddle came apart. And so, but anyways, I coached linebackers there for about 2 to 3 years. And Coach Blankenship got the job at Tulsa University. And so I was roommates with his son, who also coached at Union as well. And so he hit me up. Coach Blankenship hit me up and was like, hey, I want to meet with you. And, man, I'm getting excited. And so he kind of tricked me, Coach, because he was like, hey, man, I want you to come here and coach linebackers. And I was like, heck yeah, I'm jumped on it. Well, I tell Coach Fred, that was tough to tell him, that I'm leaving. And at the time we were pretty loaded at Union too. But, I'm thinking I'm about to go coach college football. Well, once I get there and get started, he's like, oh, yeah, you got to go to school too, man. You're getting a GA job. And I was like, you got to be freaking kidding me. Because if he would have known that I was if he would have sat that first, probably, I would have said no. Because, I wouldn't have. I went to school to play football. I'm going to be honest with you. I was an average student, and, I played the game through college and high school. So, I wouldn't, I'm book smart, but I'm not a nerd in books. But I tell you one thing: at the University of Tulsa, they can give two craps about football. They are strictly academic, so you can't. If you had a game to leave early that weekend, Coach, you're gonna just get an F on that assignment. They ain't gonna cut you any slack. So there are strictly academics, man. So I just didn't learn a lot of, about football, but the education part of the University of Tulsa just took my brain to a whole nother, aspect, and so I got to work under the defensive coordinator, Brent Guy. Well, what's awesome about him was him and Gary Patterson, they was GAs together at Utah State or Oklahoma State, but they worked together at Utah State as well. And they both sat down and they developed the 4-2-5 defense. So, man, I was Brent Guy's like right-hand man, which was just insane to me. We've been in the box, and I'm just a GA, and he tell everybody, hey, be quiet. AG, what you got? And I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? There's a full-time coach over there because we had Calvin Thibodeau on staff, who's probably one of the top D-line coaches in the nation. We had Jess left there. He's now the defense coordinator at UTSA. And so we had an unbelievable staff defensively, man. And so, but he trusted me. And, man, I was there for almost 3 to 4 years. And so we got let go from there. Coach Blankenship went on to Memphis, and so I decided to go back to Tulsa Union. And because at that time, man, I kind of felt like people thought I was crazy to get out of college coaching. So it was like, Coach, man, you got it to you. You're young, you know the game very well, and you be the guy that can actually make it through this deal. Because I went to my first AFC convention, brother, and it just deflated me, man. Just I had people handing me resumes. And I was like, dude, I'm just a GA. So the next day I just literally went to the convention with just no logo on, no nothing, and just tried to, connect with people. But, I'm a big family guy, man, and I just can't see myself. I like to fish and hunt and stuff, and that college just take up so much of your time. And that was back in 15 and 16, man. And so I ended up going back to Union, and we ended up winning to go back there, and we won a state championship there. And Coach B ended up taking the job in Fayetteville, Arkansas. And so I'm literally about to head that way, and I get on social media a couple of nights before, and I see that Coach B taking a Wasso job. And I'm like, you got to be freaking kidding me, man. And I'm kind of mad because, the difference from Oklahoma pay to Arkansas pay is a huge jump.
Yeah.
So I'm like, man, I'm about to go make a killing right now. And I got mad because I'm literally about to go down there with them, brother. And I'm like, what are you doing, Coach? Are you taking this a Wasso job? We literally, the year before, we put up almost 60 points on them at Union. It was bad, man. And I was just like, so I trusted God, and I take that leap of faith, and I ended up going over there with them. I actually, Coach, I was the last coach to get hired on the staff, which is crazy because I was pretty upset, man, because I had my mindset going on to Fayetteville. And you know how media is, dude. They put it out there before it's supposed to be, right? And so I found out through Facebook. So I was like, man, you should have at least told me, But he was like, dude. And so it just happens. And
Yeah.
me being in the game for a while now, I understand how stuff that kind of happens like that. And so I ended up getting hired over there to coach tight ends. And believe it or not, man, that was a blessing because, like, as a defensive minded guy, man, now I know how the offense's blocking schemes. It just taught me so much because, we were in a bunch of 11 personnel offense, and that ace back was a huge key. That tight end hybrid guy was a huge key of Coach Blankenship's offense because he kind of ran the Valente system, the Memphis system. So he kind of took that system with him towards high school or whatever. And, that where that tight end have to insert in certain gaps if it's open, And so I was like, okay, now this is why they do this to me defensively. And so it made me so much of a better coach. So if I had to give any advice to anybody that's a young coach, man, just don't put yourself as a DB coach. Don't put yourself as a linebacker coach. Coach both sides of the ball, man, because
Yep.
it makes you that much more better as a coach. And so, man, and what was crazy, I almost this close became an offensive dude because it's just it's hard to it's hard to coach defense these days, man.
Yes, it is.
It's very, very hard. So, but ever since then, man, Coach Beats kind of stepped away, and I was able to kind of take over the program, and we kind of see what happens now, man. So,
Yeah, first year going in, and this is your first head coaching job too, right?
yes, sir.
What
Yes.
what year is this for you in football?
God, I want to say this is 13.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
around that way. Yeah. I haven't really. I'm kind of scared to count up the years or whatever, but it's about 30. Yeah, year 13. Yeah,
that's good, man. That's
yeah,
truly kind of old school, putting in the work, putting in the grind before that opportunity presents itself.
yes,
I
sir.
know a bunch of my generation, we're applying for head coaching jobs pretty early.
Mm-hmm.
We don't necessarily, but these small schools, man, that's just kind of how it works. Sometimes I think it's not. You don't sit for 13 years on staff hardly anymore. So
No,
we're all
no,
surrounded by the little schools out here in my part of Oklahoma.
absolutely. Agreed.
Well, man, that's a really neat journey, and getting to follow the legend around, Coach B, like that's only going to be good for your career. So,
Yeah,
shoot, I
yeah.
was glad I got to be with him for a year and just kind of pick his brain and watch how he does things. I didn't even get to talk to him as much as I wanted. We ended up I didn't really know how busy freshman ball was
Right.
until
Yeah. No
until it
doubt.
kicked off, and I was like, oh, I won't see any varsity stuff until
It's
Friday night.
exactly.
But
Exactly.
it's good though, man. It had a ton of fun over there. So,
No
well,
doubt.
Coach, man, appreciate you so much for coming on. We'll get into some questions, but first, Kenny, why don't you tell me how to simplify football for my staff and my players? What's up, coaches? I want to talk to you for just a few moments about your program. You know, the longer I'm in this profession, the more I understand that efficiency is truly the name of the game. You're talking offense, defense, doesn't matter, right? Eventually, you're going to come down to checking out your efficiency. So I have to ask you, are you doing everything in your program the most efficient way, right? Are you fundraising the most efficient way? Are you representing your players and your program to the public in the best way? Are you planning to build the facilities the most efficient way? If you answered no to any of those, or really even if you answered yes to all of them, and you haven't contacted Mark Bridges at Ace Sports, you're missing a key step. So look, Mark and his team, you know, they are the go-to group for video board and scoreboard installations for your school. They're not just football either. Mark can help you mock up your newest video board for your that new stadium, or maybe even your old stadium, right? That's where Mark and the guys come in. And we're not just buying a flashy thing, right? Yes, it's nice. It's pretty neat to have that big scoreboard, that big video board, but you're also, you know, you're investing back into that program. You're investing into that newest fundraiser. Sure, you can keep selling your discount cards, your beef jerky, hosting pie auctions, whatever it is that you like to do. But let's just be honest with ourselves, guys. We're not making enough money for those big ticket items. For the big ticket items like turf, an indoor facility, that's where you need a big ticket item fundraiser. That's what Ace Sports is offering you today. Guys, I've talked to Mark several times now, right? And it always comes down to big school, small school. Right? Well, of course, the big schools can afford that new video board, but the small schools really can't. It's just not true anymore, man. Your school isn't too small, and I promise. Okay, 1A, 2A schools, it doesn't matter. Mark and the guys, they're helping them out. Contact Mark today at mark.bridges@acesports.com and let him come give you a quote. Let him show you and your administration the plan. Now, really, it's the cheat code, right? Let him show you the cheat code that is fundraising with Ace Sports video boards. Tell him Daniel sent you.
Coaching 101 podcast is sponsored by Findaway Productions. Findaway Productions also sponsors fbcoachsimpson.com for all your coaching needs, with over 30 coaching materials, books, as well as 50 PowerPoints and videos and smaller materials, and the free magazine headsets. Findaway Productions also sponsors offensivecoordinatoracademy.com, all things offense, and defensivecoordinatoracademy.com, all things defense.
This episode is brought to you by Athletic Speed and Movement. At athleticspeedmovement.com, we've taken Del Basquet's 45 years of speed and movement training and put it all in one place just for you. You can get the same training that NFL players have been getting for years, collegiate players have been getting for years, and now high schools across the nation are paying thousands of dollars to bring Del in to install his system, but we've got it online for you. It's time to help your team become faster, not just in the 40, not just their sprint speed, but between the tackles and their cuts while they're chasing down the quarterback. It's time for you to help them become faster everywhere. Jump over to athleticspeedmovement.com. There's an orange button there. Just click it. It says, get the keys to playing faster. You'll get the 3 core movement video from Dell. He's explaining the science behind it, all for just the price of your email. Check it out, athleticspeedmovement.com. Sweet, appreciate that. Once again, you know, I can't speak highly enough of, you know, Coach Welchman and what he's doing with his ProCom stuff. Reach out to him, that website. And then, you know, Mark and Ryan and the guys, I've really enjoyed just getting to know them and working with those scoreboards. Those video boards, dude, they're sweet. It is super easy fundraising, and I that's like the biggest sell to me. Like, I'm gonna give you free money. Like, you just let me come in and install my product, and you get all this money. So, Kenny, I know you're kind of a walking billboard for their scoreboards, but man, it's been really neat getting to talk to those guys and look at how they're doing that stuff. So we will jump right into questions here. Question 1, and Kenny, we'll let you start. What does a pressure package consist of? So we're developing our pressure package for defense for the season. What's some key things I need to put in there?
Well, I mean, first of all, when you get into your pressure packages, you got to kind of think of building. So you kind of think of building from the ground up. So I'm an offensive guy, but I was a defensive guy before. I was an offensive guy, so kind of like Coach's story where he's doing the other way. I went the other direction. I started on defense and now I'm on offense, but I still think the way you look at it is the same way an offense would build, is you build with tags. So you need to have the verbiage to tag any player to come from any direction. So that means you got to have blitzes coming from the edge, blitzes that are coming on the inside. They could be A gap, B gap, however you want to kind of make your terminology fit there. I would use really simple words that kids understand because these are kids playing football. So, for example, we use the word fire for coming off the edge, and I think we use the word smoke for coming in the middle. And so those are, and I don't know if you still even use those terms with our defense now, but that was what we would use. And so if you said Mike fire, that told the Mike linebacker to come off the edge. So you have to set up kind of your one-person blitzes where I can bring, if we're a 4 front, we're bringing a 5th guy. If we're a 3 front, we're bringing a 4th guy. Then you've got to have the ability to move your front. So what words tell your defensive line to go to a different gap? And those could just be like a right or a left. They could be like a loop or a pinch. So you have to set up all that terminology. And I don't want to go just really far down that tangent. But basically, you have the ability to move your defensive line and to bring one player. And then in my opinion, you need to start to have 2 or 3. I don't think you need really a lot more than that, but 2 or 3 where you're going to bring multiple players. So if you're going to do one blitz, you might say Mike fire, Will smoke, and you're bringing them both. So that's fine. But once you get past that many words, you might want to start thinking of kind of family grouping your blitzes. If we're going to bring 2 players, one's coming from the inside, one's coming from the outside, we might call that like banjo or just whatever you decide to name it. It doesn't really matter. Whatever you want to name it. And so we're going to be able to call it that and then tag to bring a different kid. So we may say, let's say banjo means both inside linebackers are coming. But if I call, a different word, it's going to bring a different player on that same blitz. So you want to have kind of family groups and then the ability to tag. So it's the same blitz for the defensive line. It's the same blitz for the defense. And now we're going to bring these 2 players instead of those 2 players. Cody Alexander had a book he put out called Hybrids. I know he's not on our podcast tonight, but I thought it was a really good idea, the ability to bring multiple players. That's kind of where the game is going, where you can bring this guy or that guy, and the kids learn that way. Like that's how they learn. They understand, okay, this means this, but now we're going to run it with this other guy. If he's doing that, you got to do his job. And so it's an easy way to kind of conceptually teach that. Then I think you got to figure out, are we going to have a show or a no-show? Like, are we going to show our blitz or are we going to not show our blitz? And inside of that family, it might be like our word for that is talk. So talk means we're going to stem to it and we're going to talk our way out of it or talk our way into it. So it's kind of a word we use to get into that. But you might have a word where you're bluffing. Like you're going to show the blitz and you're going to get out of the blitz. Or you're not going to show it at all until post-snap. Like you're blitzing, but you don't even move at all until the ball is snapped. You're not trying to time it up. So you need to have that kind of terminology of we're going to run our blitz, we're not going to show it, or we are going to run our blitz, we are going to move to it. So whatever that terminology is for, there's a lot of terminology. And then the final thing I think when you're building a blitz package that you need to think about is your coverage. Like, are you going to blitz and run zone behind it? That's going to be a little different. Or you're going to blitz and play man free or man or whatever you're going to play. What does that look like? We don't run a lot of man in our defense. And so for us, if we're going to blitz and we're going to blitz multiple players, that means the other guys have got to kind of learn the drops. Like, where are they dropping? What does that mean? What's that look like? And then if it's an exotic type blitz, and I say exotic, meaning we're bringing 2 or 3 players, a lot of times we will go ahead and build the coverage call into the play. Like, it's kind of understood. If we're running this blitz, we're running roll coverage. And our safety understands both linebackers are vacating this area. So you got to come down here and play collision to flats or whatever that might look like. And so that's kind of the way I look at building it is you have the terminology for 1 player, for 2 players. Are we going to show it, not show it, move to it? How's that going to look? And how's the back end of that going to look with it? And I think that's why being a defensive coordinator, Coach mentioned it right before we took our break. It kind of sucks because it's hard. That's a lot of stuff you got to know. And not only that, you got to be able to teach them what to do when they do blitz. We didn't even talk about that. Like what to do when they do blitz and it's a screen. Are you teaching to peel off? So what are your rules that are built within that? Like, do you have you're blitzing, but you have back out, or you're not blitzing, but if the back protects, you're going. So there's all that kind of stuff that you got to think through before you can just say we're just going to blitz. And I think a lot of times younger DCs especially, they just kind of blitz because it's like they don't really know how to fix their defense. So it's kind of their go-to is just to blitz without really a purpose. And so I think that's not a good thing. I think you want to blitz when you choose to blitz, not blitz because you have no idea how to do anything else.
I've definitely been there already in my career where it's like base ain't working, the stuff we schemed up isn't working. Let's just start sending the house. Like if we're pressured up right now, we might as well put the pressure on them, right? They're going to score 100 here, or they're going to score a die. I mean, let's just figure it out. AG, man. So kind of same question to you. Like what goes into your pressure package? And if you need to compound on what he said, that's fine too.
Yeah,
But what are you putting into a pressure package?
I agree with Coach Simpson. I think you got to make it simple. Yeah, verbiage. I'm a huge verbiage guy. Um, One thing I've learned just kind of working on that Gary Patterson, that Brent Guy system, that it shocked me about the verbiage because as a young coach and you grew up watching, NFL mic'd up or whatever, you always heard those long words. And so as a DC, I'm like, golly, my blitz got to be razor claw stinger, you know what I mean? Which what the heck does that mean? Nothing. It's just, and so one thing I do is, I try my best to, to make words like, hey, if you're on the field side, if these words means that if it's fire, everything's coming from the field. If it's burn, we're coming from the boundary. You know what I'm saying? So I'm that guy, and that means we're rolling that way. We're spinning, and so I'm all about, verbiage. The simpler it is, and the fastest I can get it, because these days us DCs are getting freaking tempo like crazy. So are you going to spit out that long word, and by the time you say it, the ball snapped and the kids are looking at you and you getting gashed. And so I'm huge on verbiage. Like I try to keep it 2 words: the blitz name, boom, with the coverage behind it. And now once you rep it so many times, hey, if you saying, laser, they know that's coming from the boundary because that's to the left, depending on your defensive structure. You know what I'm saying? So I'm huge on the verbiage, and also I think also you got to do a good enough job of, when you do blitzes, there are certain blitzes that you have to install for run protection, for run schemes and gap schemes, and and also for passing stuff. So most guys, like you said, most of these young DCs, they may have an awesome blitz, but it may get gashed because they're running counter or inside zone. You know what I'm saying? So you got to be careful whenever you blitzing, because you may send sits and more than they can block, but inside zone can just eat that crap up, and you looking like you're crazy because certain stuff. And my biggest thing is too, I'm kind of weird when it comes out of this, but you have your blitz package, right, Coach? But also you got to do a good enough job of scheming and finding the fish, and to see where the blitzes come. Like, where are you going to be most effective that game? Because one thing is, Coach, you can carry so many. Some people carry so many. Where I think get good at these 3 or 4,
Right.
and build off of it, and also do a good enough job of, every year your personnel coach changes defensively. And so what I do is I see like God D, man, that dude suck at blitzing. So we ain't gonna never get there. But he's a good run stopper. So I may not blitz him as much. So you kind of got to protect yourself where, you know, um, evaluate your players, because that changes year by year. I'm with Coach Simpson on a lot of that stuff, man. But one thing I do, Coach, like I kind of run my same families every year, but this guy may not get enough love because he's not an effective blitzer,
Right.
or he runs right down the middle of somebody and not taking on half a man. And so I think if you're going to build a blitz package, you got to find ways to practice it and teach guys how to take on guys half a man and not run and not go get blocked. Because some kids just run right down the middle of somebody. And I'm just like, you got to be freaking kidding me. But I call them blocking maggots, man. They're magnets.
Yeah, right into it.
I'm just like, you got to take on half a man. And you got to teach it. And you got to be able to move. Just like Coach said, man, if we're blitzing this way, the movement is razor or laser. You know what I'm saying, with the D lineman. I mean, I'm really, really simple, Coach, that I'm going to have all these words means coming from the left, and all these words means we're coming from the right. And if we put 0 behind it, or we set, it's 0 blitz. So I'm not the big verbiage guy, but I also, I kind of put it on myself where I'm going to scheme you up as an offense, and I may tweak some up each week, but it's going to be simple. And it's not going to be crazy where our kids can walk through it, where our kids can run it.
I want to go a couple of things Coach said there. One is I'm the same way. I mean, I think if you have more than really, I hate to give a number because sometimes your coaching kids are smarter than others. But let's say you have more than 3 or 4. I don't really know how effectively you can teach them how to do that, like to take on half a man, because you've got to spend time teaching them how to blitz. I know we make the mistake. I know my own defensive staff, young coaches, really intelligent coaches, they want to put so much in. And I did too. When I was young, I want to put so much in. Mm-hmm. But if you do that, you really can't spend the time teaching a kid how to blitz. Where I would rather have 3 blitzes and he understands like his aiming point, when to time it up, how to take the block on, because you only have so much time in a day. If you're spending 10 minutes going through blitz and all it is running through dummies, I don't really know how effective that is, because you're having to spend so much time on the scheme that you're not really teaching them how to actually do it when the bodies are moving, like Coach kind of mentioned. The other 2 things I had on here, and he mentioned game plan, is like you got to have kill calls. Like teams are going tempo, so you may call a stunt off of the edge and they come out in quads or trips. Your kids got to be smart enough there to know when to kill it. Like because sometimes you got to call a blitz. You're anticipating something, or maybe they motion or shift into trips. We got to be smart enough in the game plan to know we don't run this blitz off of trips. We don't run this blitz off of whatever. And so some kind of those kill calls. And then I think we're really big on automatics, and that's kind of getting into more game plan stuff. But, we see blank into the boundary, or we see this or third down, we see this. And a lot of times for us, that means we might start off with, these are the 6 or 7 blitzes we like going into a game. And by Thursday, it's the 3 or 4 we're going to run, because we're running so many automatics. We don't need to go into those blitzes. In my mind, a lot of times our kids will kind of know, here's what we're going to run, because it's in the game plan, not so much coaches just randomly calling blitzes.
Yeah. And Coach, I would like to add, sorry about that. I would like to add on to that, Coach. You also got to have a call too, as well, when you're blitzing, Coach. Is play it no matter what.
Yep, run it.
You know what I mean? It's like, your kids should be smart enough where, hey, hopefully, we get empty, it's off, and we're in our empty check. And so, like, most of the time, I like to give, when we come off the sideline, they get the front, the 2x2 check, the 3x3 check, and the empty check before we go out there. And if I call a blitz, and I'm like, hey, play it. They know that if they come out empty, we still going to run that blitz. And so, just going to add on to it that you got to have a play call, and a call where it's off. And sometimes, man, it don't work out that way when you're, because and I think you have to coach that stuff. Mm-hmm. I love the fact how Coach Simpson said that, like, Coach Chamberlain, I don't know if you noticed this a couple of years, but we did something different this year. Instead of inside run, some days we do inside blitz pickup, where our defense is going against our offense. It's just 7-on-7, and we're running blitzes. Hey, Coach, me and the offensive court, me and the O-line, me and Coach Morrissey, we'd be like, hey, we're sending 7. We have and the quarterback literally have to throw the ball out hot. We put 2 receivers on the other side. where you're coming off the edge, and it's teaching your quarterback where the ball's coming hot. So you got to practice it on live bodies. You know what I mean? Yep. And so I think that's the biggest important thing. You just can't continue to run them off. Yeah, it's good. It's okay to have a walkthrough off bags, but it's nothing like seeing that movement in front or whatever, and that Mike backer going right off that guy's butt and making him play, And so I think that's important, Coach, like you said earlier.
Absolutely. A couple things, y'all. Number one, having a system, and I've talked about this for the last couple of years since I've had a microphone in my face. You have to have a system, right? And you guys talked about verbiage. Find a family of words that you like. Some people use different animals. Some people use all cats or this, and all flying animals, or outside blitzes, or inside back, whatever it is, right? Go find one you like. Dinosaurs, superheroes, Garfield characters. It don't matter, right? Find something that the words mean something to you, and you can make it correlate, because that's what's going to help you build out that system. But mainly have a system because you need a backpack to put everything in while you're waiting to figure out what kids you're going to have this year, right? And then you know what you can take out and use. Mm-hmm. But you can't just let it all go. You don't need to reinvent the wheel next year. You got to have that system. And maybe your kids maybe they get a good leap in the middle of the year, and you're like, sweet, now we can install a little bit more. Here's this other really fun thing I've kept. Kenny, you talked about, we've talked layering blitzes before, right? Like having all the words that keep stacking until you get to this is too many words, now let's make it a name. Y'all both talked about like offensive coaches, and some coaches think it's really cool to say, but it's John Gruden's fault. Look, right? What did he say? Like spider 2Y banana, right?
Exactly.
And everybody, number one, they think that that's what it's supposed to look like. And we're really afraid in this industry to do something outside the box. I feel like a lot of people are afraid to not do what NFL coaches are doing. So when that got leaked, or it was mic'd up or whatever, but look, every guy out there went, oh my God, as a coordinator, I have to tell every single athlete on the field what to do in my playground. Like, no, you don't.
And I heard something about that the other day. I think that's stupid too at the high school and collegiate level. But what they're saying at the NFL level is you may pick up a dude on Monday and he's got to play Sunday. So they have to have verbiage to talk to each specific player. They've got to have that. Hopefully you're not doing that at your high school. Hopefully you've got a guy you've had all year. We're not having to, so it's, again,
I don't know. We got that transfer portal now. You know what I mean? It's coming.
But it's different. Exactly. It's different. Don't watch. I think college and high school guys are getting way more simple,
And you both said, talk about staying simple. Don't be too complex. You don't have to limit yourself to like having 2 fronts and 2 blitzes and a coverage. Like it doesn't have to be that ridiculous, right? Depending on level. If you're youth ball, maybe that you probably want to be right there. Start getting good at something.
I mean, you think about how many ways you can roll to cover 3, which is an easy coverage. Yeah. You could roll 4 different ways, and so now it looks different.
I was scrolling through Twitter the other day, and I saw a whole system based off of like AA mug, right? Sometimes we're going to send those backers so that, just having 2 5s, 2 3s, and linebackers in the A gaps. And it's like, most people see that and go, okay, yeah, it's a AA gap blitz, but no, it ain't. Now we're pinching and bailing with those linebackers. Now one's coming and one's not. Right. Now one's turning and sprinting into Tampa 2, and we're bringing stuff off the other edges. So just having AA mug as a defensive, you can do so much with it.
Oh, there's no doubt.
And there's no reason to have a whole big system when you can do so much with the base stuff. Yeah. Right? Pick 4-2-5, AG, when you've talked about it before, but when I got in with Joe, and that's kind of he learned it from Gary Patterson as well. And so I just think it's like the perfect defense to start with. I learned a whole bunch about 3-4 this year, but that 4-2-5 is just, man, big guys on the line. You're plugging
3-4s where it's at now.
Yeah. So, pick one and run with it. If you want to be scientific about it, I can tell you that every O-line coach I talk to says they hate trying to block 3-3 stack because they can't account for one dude, right? Like that seems to be a whole bunch of O-line coaches' issues.
You see, 3-3 stack. Aside from I don't want to go too far with the change, but Coach may be interested in this. When Flores was in Miami, they used to call that like that AA mug double. They called it tag, So what they would do is all the players would try to touch an offensive lineman. If no one touched you back, you went. If anyone touched you, you bailed. And all they were trying to do was get it uncovered and drop 2 or 3 guys. It was, I think, one of the more inventive things that I'd seen in a long time. And they literally they went about 7 games in a row that year running that defense. Everybody's up, we're in 0, and we're either going to roll to 2, and then we're going to run tag.
Yep.
That's beautiful.
I've been on part of that.
So yeah, man, just when you start building that system, be simple, have enough answers, take more out of the backpack as you need them. And I think just about everybody, life will be okay right there. So next question here, guys, we'll move on. I don't want to, like you said, get stuck. Boy, we could talk and building the package forever. Why do we need to have multiple ways to kind of bring pressure in the same areas?
Am I first or is Coach?
AG, I'll let you go first.
Well, I think for once is, all right, let's just say, are they a full slide, a half slide? Are they keeping the back end? I think that's the biggest thing is that, like, you got to be able to find a way to win one-on-ones, be creative to win on one-on-ones, because like you say, if I'm trying to beat a half slide or a full slide or, are they keeping the back end, you got to find ways to win those one-on-ones. I don't think I like movement in front of my blitzes because anytime you can make one of those fat guys chase a linebacker or it's just that it's hell, man, and so definitely that right tackle or that left tackle, because those are usually your studs, right? So anytime you can try to get him to turn his hips one way or to go chase, that's why it's important to me. And I tell my linebackers and coach it, if you get beat by a back, you ain't playing. You got to win your one-on-one against a freaking running back. And so if we beat that tackle and you get blocked by a back, you're probably going to find your way on the bench. And so I just think it's important. The more I can get that fat guy to bend or to go chase somebody, but if you just make it easy, you just send one guy here, one guy there, that's boom, boom. That's every day what they work on. So I think you got to do a good enough job of what are those guys are studying and what are those guys are doing on the up front. You know what I'm saying? And if which way is the center is turning as well. Does he turn to the left? I do a little deal where the C turn. Is the center always which way does he try to help out with? And so the more you can get moving up front to get those guys moving around, I think the better you be.
Yeah. Kenny, same question to you. Why do we just have multiple ways to bring pressure in the same places?
I love how Coach talked about movement. I think that's key. I mean, as an offensive guy, that's the last thing we want to see is guys chasing, and now we got a running back. I know you draw it up on a board, and my running back versus your Mike looks really good, but that's not what he's in there to do. Like it's not really what he wants to do. There aren't very many guys that really want to do that. I put down, I think there's a couple of reasons. One is, although I'm not advocating to just randomly blitz, there comes a time when they're just whipping your tail. Like as a defensive coordinator, their base versus your base, they got you figured out. That's gonna happen. You can't sit stagnant and not understand they're not going to get you at some point. So if they have you figured out, you got to have something you can throw, whether that's movement, like Coach said, bringing an extra player, doing something, because sometimes, the Jimmies and Joes matter. And sometimes their Jimmies are a little better than your Joes. And so you got to figure out a way to create a negative play or get them in an uncomfortable situation. So you're going to have to blitz, and that's going to happen. 2, I think it's a different game. I think today's game is a different game. If you let a quarterback sit back there in the pocket, even maybe 5-10 years ago, even our theory was make him hit 5-yard hitches all the way down the field. Like that was kind of our theory. We've had to move away from that because quarterbacks now will do that. Like they're good enough now to go 5-yard, 5-yard, 5-yard touchdown. And now you look really stupid. And so you're going to have to figure out a way to get them behind the sticks. And I think when I look at defense, I don't necessarily look at like yards given up, all that. I don't really care about that kind of stuff. Can we create game-changing plays? Can we create pick sixes? Can we create turnovers? I think turnovers in today's game are almost a must because eventually you're going to play a good enough offense. Let's be honest. You're not going to just shut them out. So how can we create a turnover? And the best way usually to do that is to bring pressure, make that guy make a mistake, and then capitalize on that pressure. So I think the game is different, where instead of just saying, hey, we're going to be real conservative and make them earn it, you're going to play a team that's going to be good enough to earn it. And so you're going to have to change that mindset. And that's been hard for me because it's hard for me because I'm an offensive guy. But now I'm telling our defensive guys that screw it. You guys be aggressive. And if they hit us over the top, who cares? If you get 3 turnovers and they hit us for 180-yarder, I'll take that deal any day of the week. Like, all right, you hit us once and we got 3 turnovers, we're going to take that. Not let you milk the clock all the way down the field and I only get it twice. The game's kind of changed. And then I put
Coach.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. And this could wait, but you were talking about, you got to get turnovers. This is random, but have you looked at your goals 10 years ago on defense and see, hey, back 10 years ago, you say we got to hold a team under 14 points.
Now it's 21.
Exactly. So
that's exactly right, Coach. Just now I want to coach them different. I think you have to coach kids to be more aggressive because honestly, if you sit back, a lot of times back then, old school offense, the passing game had not evolved to the level it's at right now. And there are games we're going to see that, like we're playing in Arkansas. When I was playing at the 6A level, it was obviously a lot tougher. The passing game was more advanced. As you kind of drop down, it's just different.
Mm-hmm.
It's not better, worse, or whatever. It's just different. So we will see some teams where we will say, I don't think they're good enough. Let's be conservative. But to beat the elite teams, to get where you want to get, you're going to have to beat some elite offenses. And I think for that's where I think the blitzing and the movement and the stunning and all of that stuff, because what happens is, are they dictating the game to you or are you dictating the game to them? And I think the read and react stuff, which is nice, works, and it works really well against old school offenses. So kind of take that for a little, whoever's listening. If you're playing a wing T team or a flexbone team or whatever, you probably need a lot of read and react. You don't want to just blitz those teams. That's probably not good. But for the spread teams, which are kind of taking football by storm, you got to have something where you can dictate to them the terms of the game and not them dictate to you. Because if I know you're going to sit in a 4-2-5 cover 2, we're going to pick you apart. We're going to manipulate you to where we want you. We're going to pick you apart. Or if I know you're going to sit in a 3-4, whatever, we're going to pick you apart. If I know I'm getting man zero every play, we're going to pick you apart. So you've got to have the ability to give me a different picture every snap, but keep it simple for your kids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think those are key points. You talk about needing to be able to get the same place multiple ways. You may know they have a weakness wherever it is on the line. Y'all both brought up pass pro, but they still have your Jimmy outmanned, right? So even though it's a weakness, the guy that's sitting in that gap ain't the guy. And so you got to be able to bring someone else. I'm super big into like safety blitzes. I just love a good cover 3, bring a safety in the B gap, because a lot of teams don't. They just can't. Number one, that kid's not in the count. So you talk about their linemen are scanning one way or the other, right? And they're looking for well, now it's a single digit. It used to be like a 50s, 60s number, and then that 50s to 80s whatever linebacker number. They just want them. They're looking at big kids. They're not looking at the dude zooming in from the outside. So I really like that, because offenses nowadays are really just picking on force players, right? Kenny, you've popularized these RPOs and running buck sweep, and it doesn't matter who your force guy is. We're gonna read him or kick him anyway, so it really don't matter who he is. So they're gonna mess him up. Well, if I leave him there and I can just add another dude in the B gap, now what are you gonna do, right? And of course, I mean there are answers, but do you have the answer right now on this play? Unfortunately,
we haven't even talked about zone drops. I know that's probably down the road or probably a whole different discussion, but you want to stop the RPO, there's 2 ways you can stop it. You go man, so that's one way you can try to stop it. The other way is a zone drop, where you're going to take a D lineman that we're not accounting for and drop him into the window. Those are the 2 ways. If you're trying to stop the RPO game, you're seeing a lot of RPO, you got to have enough of a mix of man, and then you got to have enough where we're dropping a guy that we're not accounting for into windows, which is usually a D lineman.
And so I just really like that ability to bring, I need to be able to hit A gap, B gap, C gap, whatever, specifically that gap for whatever reason. But I need to be able to put 2, 3, 4 different guys into that gap and make your dudes constantly have to be reading, right? So I think that's part of it. We're always just trying to outsmart a 14 to 18-year-old kid anyway. I don't have to outsmart the coach on this, but I got to outsmart that kid. And so having 2 or 3 answers or ways to get pressure and make him think about it. Now he can't just get into Xerox mode where it's just, making a copy of the last play. I'm going to block that guy. I'm going to block that guy. Fine, go ahead. And now we're going to slip this other cat in behind you. So I really think that's pretty important. Last question here, and we can talk for as long as y'all need to. But how much do we really need to carry? So if I'm a new coach, fairly new coach, new DC, I'm putting together that pressure package. Look, there's the AGs of the world. Kenny, your defensive coordinator seems to have a lot of stuff going for him. Talked to Adam Gaylor in my time. That guy's got it going on. Right, there's these fantastic DCs that are really in this. Guys, we are in the breadbasket of football in America, if y'all didn't know. Those guys have their system is amazing, right? But you don't have to be that intricate year 1 through year 5, right? So what does a new guy really need to carry, and then how much is too much? So AG, we'll let you start with this one. So what's the bare minimum need to carry in a pressure package, and then how much is too much?
You better be able to have your coaches be able to teach it just as well as you can. I think there's been times I've been on staff where I want to carry, like, I try my best to go. If I got 5 field blitzes, I try to have 5 boundary blitzes, and that's zone. I go in, I start off with 5 zeros, 5 field blitzes, or whatever. And so, but my biggest thing is that you explain it to your coaches first, and you try to have them teach it to you. Because if they can't teach it as good as you can, you got too much, or your verbiage is all jacked up. So I think as a staff, you got to be able to sit down and know the way your guys learn, the way because, dude, in today's world, I hate to say this, but there are slim pickings out there in coaches. It's a war to find great coaches, man. And so you got to be able to teach this stuff. Man, one thing I've learned, I had a awesome presentation built up for a junior high playbook that I could pass down to my coaching staff. And I spent so much time on this, fellas, and it was a cool blitz package. It had 3 or 4 blitz package. And so Coach B was like, man, that looks really good. But you really think that 8th grade coach or that 8th grade player know what a hook is? You may need to teach him where the hook's at. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm telling you, a kid that's coming out of 8th grade, going into 8th grade, he don't know what a hook is. So when you building that blitz package for the 7th grade level, you got to teach them the basics first before you can teach them that stuff. But moving on, man, I'm going to do an IQ test over that off season. One thing I'm changing right now, we're doing football 1-on-1, man, just teaching kids just what the hashes mean. What does the bottom of the number mean offensively? Because they don't know what's the hill line means of the defense. When you're going past the D lineman, because you tell those D linemen don't go too far upfield, stop at the hill lines, right? Some of those kids don't know what that is. And some of those coaches in today's world don't know the verbiage of that,
Right.
because they see what these guys are doing on TV or whatever. So, man, I try my best to go. Every year I may start from day 0. Like, I'm teaching my varsity guys like I'm an 8th grade staff, and so I try to not to carry that much as going in, and I just try to start off with up to 3. Field and boundary, and then just build off that as we go, and have them teach it to me. So because it's going to be simple. So I want those guys to be able to teach it to me too. Because if I feel comfortable for them teaching it with me, I feel comfortable with them teaching to my players.
Absolutely. Kenny, same question. How much do we need to carry when we're trying to build out that first package? and then how much is too much?
I mean, I think a lot depends. I mean, I think coach did a good job kind of answering not only on your ability, but I think you need to look at who you're playing. Like, who are the teams you have to beat to get where you want to get realistically? I mean, like if you're rolling in here and you're 1A, 2A, 3A football at a rural area and you're seeing a bunch of wing T, flex bone, power eye, whatever, you probably don't need a lot. Like you don't need as many exotic coverages for sure, and you definitely probably don't need as many certain kind of blitzes. You know, if you're starting to look at, okay, these are the 3 or 4 games. If we want to have a great year, we have to win. Here they are. Here's what these teams run. Then I would start building out my blitzes. Like that's where I would start is for us to get where we want to get. What do we need to have? And then start from there. So you look at your competition level, then coach did a really good job kind of talking about ability. Like what's your ability level? I liked one of his quotes before. We talked about how some guys just aren't good blitzers. So, you know, why are we going to bang our head against the wall putting in a blitz that we really like for a kid who really isn't good at blitzing? Or maybe a team that we're never going to use that blitz against. And so I think you got to look at that. And then again, players and coach, what's the ability you have to teach it? Are you the only guy that's going to be capable of teaching these? Then it needs to be pretty simple. But I would start out with what you think you need. And a 3 is a pretty good number. I mean, I think that's probably a fair number. And like Coach mentioned, 3 to 5 in that world, depending on, again, if you're playing, he's playing at a higher level in Oklahoma. They're playing a lot of spread teams. You know, we're playing at a level where the teams we're going to have to beat can throw it a little bit. So we're probably going to need a little bit more against them. So for us, we're probably going to start with 3 to 5. I mean, that depends on the level. You know, this past year we had a freshman DB. My son was a sophomore DB. We had a brand new football senior DB, and then we had a junior. It was his first year to start at DB. So this is not a blitz thing, but guess how many coverages we ran? About 2, because we had those 4 guys back there that were all pretty good ball players. We got to be pretty simple with them, you know. And so this year those kids are older, so we'll run more coverages. And the same thing would apply to blitzes. You know, as your kids get older, you know, and you can do more, you can add more. I would say this last little caveat: we always will tend to start with more than we know we're really going to run. So, like if we want to run 3, you might start with 5 or 6 in the spring if you have the ability to practice in the spring or summer or whenever you have the chance to play football. Start with more because it's easier to trim and cut. Like it's easier to go, okay, we're not good at this, gone. We're not good at this, gone. We're not good at this, gone. What I think is dangerous is when you're trying to carry all of these things in and you're not evaluating constantly what you're good at and what you're not good at. Like, in my opinion, a good coach gets rid of the crap they're not good at and really just gets really good at what they are good at. And Coach mentioned you start kind of building off of that. So, and that can be way different. I mean, if you're like me, it's March. I have a depth chart right now that will change 95,000 times before we play a game. The same thing with our blitzes. You know, we have kind of our family. We run these every year. We know we're going to run those. But then we're looking at 3 or 4 other blitzes. Every year you look at kind of adding and evolving. And we know we're probably going to keep one of those. But we're going to play with these 3 or 4 with our coaches, with our kids, and just see which ones are better, knowing that we're only going to probably keep one by the end of it. So start with more than you probably think you need, and then be willing to trim.
That's actually exactly opposite of how I was taught, and I love it because there are more than one way to skin a cat, right? And I've been a good install the base, get the base done, run the base, and now add what you need, right? That way you're not trying to break out your whole system at once. And by all means, you're a much more successful coach than I, so I'm going to look at your method and see how I implement it and make it work.
We better be great at our base. Like my mind says, we're going to be great at our base. We might just run base defense and 0 blitzes until we're good at our base. But once we start doing our blitzes, we're going to install more than we probably need. Same thing on our offense. Like if you watch us play offense, we're going to be really good at buck sweep. And we're going to have about 3 million formations in the spring. And then we'll pare that down. But the base, the play, or for you defense, the base doesn't change.
I think when you start talking about how much do you want to carry, you know, you can't. It's very. You guys said 3 to 5 blitzes, and I think that's a great number, but for a different reason. And I'll explain myself in a minute after I say all this other random stuff. But I think some coaches get caught up in like, oh, I need 10 blitzes because I got to make the defense really think. But you forget about those multipliers, right? Number one, the coverage you're running behind it is making the quarterback's eyes read different stuff anyway. So even if you just ran Mike through an A gap, that's one blitz, but a couple coverages behind it, you're really changing the whole defense, right? You can make it different. Yes, you're applying pressure here to beat one kid or two kids. You got to beat that center guard combo. You got to hope that you catch them just right. You got to beat a back maybe. But then if you go into like line stunts, right? Line stunts are super cheap. Fronts are super, much like formations, right? Installing a front is super cheap, especially if we're always in an over, right? I'm a big 4-2-5 guy. I want to be an over front. So if everybody's always outside shade anyway, like who cares if it's the guard or the tackle or the center? It doesn't matter. It's the same technique for them. But now if I can cross those dudes, I can get a slant to the left, to the right. Those are multipliers. So now my 3 to 5 blitzes is 5 to 15 because I'm getting, I'm able to cross these things up. So Mike doesn't have to learn anything.
Daniel,
different. He's running
take your Mike blitz. So let's just talk about that for half a second. I know Coach might even have more to throw in on this. So I can run Mike through the A gap. Okay, that's one blitz. I can walk Mike up and send him through the A gap. I can walk Mike up and not send him through the A gap. I can bring Mike from the other side and cross the nose and run nose X, but it's still a Mike A gap blitz. I can line up Mike wide, stem him in, and bring him in. And so there's a lot. That's 5 different ways right there to run Mike through the A gap. And so I think that's the way you make your blitz package exotic, not by having 1,000 places he has to go. How does he get there? I think that's where it gets exotic.
And usually time when it gets exotic, that's usually your best guy.
Yes.
Because you find him, because think about it. We talk a million ways you can. Usually time you're going to find it. When you start getting exotic, that's when you know that's your best guy. Yeah, and how you going to hide him? Like you line them up, you take them from here. That's usually your best guy. I think that's when that's as a defensive coordinator, that's how you know your guy's figuring it out. Because he's figuring out how to get his best guy effective. I think the hardest part is for a defensive coordinator is that they got to take out their favorite blitz that they can't run it. And they're going to keep on running it, and it's never getting home. That's the hardest part for coaches these days is when, like Coach said earlier, the good ones know how to take stuff back. But it's always that one. Like, Coach, you would lose your mind if you had to take out butt sweep. If you can run butt sweep, you would lose your freaking mind.
But I've won a lot of games. I've won a lot of games on buck. Like
but I think it's defensively, like I say, it's harder than it's harder than offense. Yes. Like sometimes, man, you don't have those guys to run double edge pressure. You know what I mean? But you have that guy to run just one edge pressure, but that other guy, he can't bend the corner like he can. He's an A to B gap guy. He's not C to D to F guy. So I think the hardest part is just, sometimes we want to be so cute on defense because offense is so freaking cute that we think we got to recorrect the world. And really, man, just get your best guys and figure out how to correct habit with those guys,
I think if we kind of full circle moment here, but we started the show talking about coaching on both sides of the ball and how it just makes you better. And if we can take that one play many ways mentality, and I'm going to run my 3 blitzes, but I can get to it 30 different ways. Like, man, that's life-changing. Because the kids, Kenny, you said it, like y'all tag your defense, right? You have a base defense and you tag it, which is what all the best offenses in the world are doing right now, right? They're running 3 or 4 plays. I got to spend a little bit of time with some of the Bixby staff this summer and talking to their freshman OC because he beat the dog poo out of me 4 out of 5 games this year. And I'm just like, what are y'all doing that's so special, man? He's like, we just run like 4 plays and then we just tag the shit out of it. So, and Kenny, y'all are doing the same thing, right? You're running buck with so many formations and variations. So if you can just do that same stuff on defense, just flip the ball. Now we're just running these 3 to 4 or 5 blitzes, but I've got 5 fronts in front of it. And like y'all talk about, bringing that same kid from all over the field. And even if he's coming to the same gap, I think that you also was talking about as we kind of close up here, how much do we need to carry? I think you need to consider some run blitzes. You need to consider some pass blitzes. Not every single blitz on earth is made to go get the quarterback down on a sack. Now, can it work? Absolutely, right? But sometimes I'm trying to get hats in the B gap because they are running belly to the cow comes home, right? Because they've found a weakness, or they've got our number this game on that side. So I need to be able to problem solve. I need to be able to get concentration. We talk about principles in Army all the time, but I got to be able to increase my numbers right now. And sometimes it's pre-snap to change the read. Sometimes it's post-snap because I just need to go hit somebody in the mouth. But so, pre and post-snap movement. So, I need to be able to line a guy up there and then bring a guy from back. These are just kind of some of the things. And I think when you get to that second question, how much is too much? I think your kids tell you. And that is, as soon as you see them having to think, you've gone too far, right? When they are slowing down, when they're not flying around hitting people like they were when you decided to install that new thing, whatever it is, you've gone too far. Some kids that might be, 20, 30 different defensive calls. Some kids it might be 3. Some kids are really good at lining up in a 1 and just mauling the shit out of the center, right? And then some of them, they can kind of fly around all the field. Can you talk about your son being hyper intelligent and helping other kids line up in his sophomore year? Like, he's obviously going to be able to handle a lot more. So what is too much? That's definitely based player by player, case by case. But I think as soon as you start to see confusion, that's probably when you've gone too far. Well, sweet, gents. We'll start closing this out. Kenny, last thing here, let's do our what not to do as a coach portion. So why don't you give us our lesson for the day?
Yeah. So we try to do this each time. So basically what not to do, I think a lot of times is you got to think of your defense or offense or whatever, we talk about defense in this one, but think of it like a pyramid. The bottom level of that pyramid has got to be really good, and that's your base. So the stuff we're talking about right now is not the first thing that you're putting in. It's fun to talk about blitzes. Obviously, you need to have them in. We mentioned the importance of them. However, if you suck at your base and all you're doing is blitzing, you're not going to be very good. And so build the bottom of the pyramid, teach your kids how to tackle, how to take on blocks, how to understand leverage, all those important things first. Then if you do that, you get to have fun, and you put the next part of the pyramid that's a little smaller, which might be your first blitz package. Then you start to work on your exotics, which is even smaller. Then you work on your one-word calls, which are your coverage and your blitz and your that's the fun stuff, but that's the top of the pyramid. Sometimes as coaches, we flip it and we start trying to put that stuff in at up here, and we can't freaking tackle. You can blitz. I've had multiple times we call the perfect blitz. We execute the blitz perfect. We couldn't tackle. And that should be day one. We need to start with that. And so that's what not to do as a coach for this week.
Absolutely. So awesome. Last call out here for procomwelchman.com. Jump over there and check out the Procom stuff. Zach will tell you, they sell headsets. You're wanting fancy timers, you're wanting whistles and bells, and that's not who you're going to. You're going to get headsets of very high quality. I mean, their loudmouth for the sideline, I think, is about the fanciest, the high school ball. That's the extra piece. So you can just yell at your quarterback when you're up in the booth because he's got his own microphone now. So, and then don't forget to reach out to Ace Sports, talk to Ryan or Mark, and guys, it's free fundraising. I can't. It's mind blowing to me that everyone doesn't call Mark tomorrow and be like, "Hey, my school wants $500,000 in 5 years. Come do your thing, Mark." Also, we get to have this really neat board out here that highlight reels, whatever you want to put on it. So if you're in the need of something like that, something to spice up the stadium, something to start making an income, reach out to Mark and those guys. Coach AG, man, I appreciate it.
Pleasure's all mine.
Truly, truly so grateful that you could come on and talk with us tonight. I have to admit, man, just coming from small ball where I could walk into the head coach's office anytime and shoot the shit and we're game planning together. And then I got into that 6A1 world. That's stage fright. I've never had stage fright before, I don't think. But, walking past y'all's office and afraid to knock on the door, it happens. So, I really do appreciate your time. I know not right now. You're in a transition time, and it's busy. So
Well,
thank you
don't
so
ever
much
be
for.
afraid to knock on the door, man. Your family and Coach's family too. So I just appreciate you guys having me on, man. And I got better tonight, and I can always take something from whatever, man, and put it up here.
Absolutely.
So
Well, good
I
luck,
appreciate
Coach.
you guys.
Yeah.
We're gonna bring you back, hopefully before this, but after this first season, we're gonna bring you back and talk about the first season as a head coach.
Well, I may
right?
be working for you if I ain't get fired yet. So
Coach, buckle up, man. First year as a head coach. I've been
Yes,
there.
sir.
Have fun. Enjoy it. Enjoy your kid.
Absolutely, Coach. Thank you very much, man.
So we'll go ahead and close out real quick. Social media, AG, if somebody want to reach out to you today and ask a question, email, social media, where would they reach out to?
Yeah, man. You can just reach out on Twitter, obviously, or hit me up on the email. It's on our athletic website as well. And so, I'm an open book, man. And so, I want people to be able to grow and learn. And so, feel free to hit me up on Twitter or hit my email.
What's your Twitter handle?
It's just God dang it, I'm so old school. I hate to even tell you this.
He's
about
logged
10
in
years
on his
quick.
phone, Daniel. He don't know what
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah,
I've never
Coach
seen
A.
it before.
Graham. Coach A. Graham.
Coach A.
I'm
Graham.
simple, just like my defense, baby. Coach
I
A.
love it,
Graham.
man.
Yep, Coach A. Graham.
I do love that you're a 4.25 guy. Like as soon as I heard that when I walked on campus this year, I was absolutely stoked.
Yeah.
I love getting together and talking 4.25 with some guys. If you want to talk to me, you can reach out to me on Twitter at Coach Chambo OK. You can also email me at chamberlainfootballconsulting@gmail.com. Might be a website in the works. I'm trying to put my portfolio online because I'm tired of applying for jobs and remaking stuff all the time. So I'm just going to make some stuff and be like, hey, go to the website. You want to hire me? Go to the website. Kenny, where can we find you at, sir?
All things FB Coach Simpson. So Twitter is FB Coach Simpson. FBCoachSimpson.com is a website. And then FBCoachSimpson@gmail.com is my email.
Perfect. Podcast is at Coaching 101 Pod on the Twitter. Feel free to DM there, ask questions anytime. I love talking ball. I'm sure Kenny does as well. Although, man's probably busy. You travel so much now. I bet it's a blast. But AG, one last time, man. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Grab the rest of your crew, man. Talk to those guys. Tell them let's go.
Let's do it.
Dominic Franks has been on the other show a couple times, so we'll have to get you on with him sometime. Talk a little defense.
Oh, always. Me and him talk about it all the time.
Absolutely. I want to thank you for being a listener to the Coaching 101 podcast. We'll hope you join us next week as we continue to make the complex more simple. Please consider subscribing to the show so you always know when the new episodes are out. We'll leave you with this. It's hard to beat someone who never gives up. No matter the situation, find a way.